Hi, and welcome back to our next video. This may be a little shorter, but I want to talk about something we've not dealt with in any of the earlier videos, and that is turning end grain. Those people who turn hollow vessels, this is where they live, because they're always turning down inside of something, and they're turning something that is always in an end grain orientation. In other words, the fibers of the wood are running this direction. That represents two sets of problems. One set of problems is the fibers are running this direction, which means some of the cutting directions and tools that we would have used outside on a bowl don't work so good. The second problem is obviously something we can't demonstrate today, is working through a small hole and not being able to see what you're doing. That's a whole set of skills which will be dealt with at another time. But I want to talk about cutting end grain. And that's the process of working inside here. So what I've done is set up a bowl, sort of, end grain. And I've done that so that we'll be able to see the tools cut. And I will show you the different kinds of tools that we can use when we are cutting end grain. And I brought a selection of different ones, some of which you may be familiar with, others not so much. I'm not going to deal with scrapers, which you have seen used so many times, and they will cut across these fibers. But I want to deal with all the edged tools that we can use for end grain turning. So let me explain what the problem is. I'm going to go to the whiteboard here, and I want to show you what I mean. So let's call this an end grain vessel. All right, not a very nice one. But the fibers are running this direction. Make it an end grain bowl. Now my bowl gouge loves to cut this direction, across the fibers. Well, to do that, I'd have to get the handle back in a place that's just not possible. So what I have to do is find some tool that will cut across these fibers this way. And that means a tool that goes in here and can cut across that fiber. Now, if I push the tool down this direction, I'm pushing into the end of the fiber, and that's not a very good cut. The quality will be poor, the work will be high. I would rather be able to cut this direction. In this way, when I cut this fiber, the one below it is supporting it. And I'm cutting across the fibers, much like I do when I'm turning a regular side grain bowl. Now, side grain bowl, let me go above here, would look like this with the fibers here. And when I go in with my gouge and cut, I'm cutting across those fibers exactly the same way. And my problem is that I can't use a gouge in here because the handle is in a place that's not possible. So let me show you back at the lathe some of the tools that can do the job. And I'm going to end up with some that you may not be too familiar with. I have a piece of wood on here. This is carob. It's partially green, and the grain is oriented. This is the way the grain is laid in this piece of wood right now. The grain is going this direction. Normal bowl, it would have been turned this direction. Pretty wood anyway. This is carob, tree that we took down here a few months ago, and we had some blanks made up. So, one of the things I'm going to do is, first tool that we would have thought about using for hollowing would be a shallow fluted gouge, which can go into the center and can be pulled out this way, coming downhill to those grain and across those fibers again. That works. But it doesn't work inside a hollow vessel where I have a recurve and I can't fit. But on a piece like this, where I can show you, if I go straight into the center and bring the handle back, keeping the tool rotated about 45 degrees, it cuts across those fibers pretty nicely until it doesn't. So that was working really fine, but it's not an appropriate tool for this. You saw it catch. Cut was fine. until I got to a place where it just took too big of a bite. I can't control it well enough for hollowing. So let's take a look at some of the tools that we can use for hollowing. One of the tools that's been around for a long, long time, which we have used here at school and many other places, is the Ellsworth style hollowing tools. Generally they're made in two forms. One straight, for basically removing a lot of mass down inside of a vessel, and one with a slight bend to the blade so we can come up underneath a curved shoulder. Straight for here, curved for getting back underneath this shoulder. It's worked on center line. It's worked level. That handle's a little too high, so I've got to drop the thing just a bit. I can go in here at center line. On my tools, I generally put a black mark right on the top. If this is inside of a hollow vessel where I can't see where the tool is, I need to know what my rotation is. In my little demo piece here where you can see from the other camera, I'm going to turn this about 45 degrees. And I'm cutting from the center. Sorry about the noise. I can drop that vibration by shortening that distance and making the tool vibrate less, and also taking a lighter cut. So this is the scraper. When I'm going in here, I'm putting the tool against the wood. I'm cutting from the bottom outward, not down, but out. And you saw what I had to do in order to get that cut. This handle gets pushed way back behind. And the moment that handle drops, I end up in a place where I start to risk a catch. Now I've got a little bit of a dimple right in the center to make that go away. This tool and variations on it, very traditional. Well, let's see, what else can we look at? Here's one that works very similar to that. This is by Kel McNaughton out of Australia. Kel makes these in a number of different sizes. This is a piece of cutting steel on top of a very well supported back edge. Again, worked exactly the same way, from the center out. Another variation of the same type. Oh, I'm putting that handle high, so I need to drop it just a bit. This is unhandled, it's fine for small pieces like this. Get my hand out of the way so you can see better. It's cutting exactly the same way. Again, it's a scraping action. And the handle goes back, but the tool has to stay level. Another variation on the same tool. I'm leading up to a point here. Here's another tool. This is a carbide tool. Interesting thing about this one, the backside is shaped in a V. So when I lay it on the tool rest, it automatically is cocked at 45 degrees, approaching a bevel cut. The bevel is always at the right angle. The bevel is always at the right angle because there's only one way to lay on the tool rest. Those that have a round back, you always have a problem with trying to find the exact spot. This comes in multiple sizes. Put that out of the way. Here's another variation of a tool like that. This one has a cap on the top. It's a chip breaker. It prevents this little cutting edge from going too deep into the wood and taking too big of a bite. I can adjust this to prevent deep cuts. So it won't go too deep. I can adjust the depth of that. The chip breaker does have a tendency sometimes to log up with a little bit of green wood. These are all variations. Here's where I want to go. This tool is made by One-Way Manufacturing. It's called a termite tool. There is a Carbide tool that's similar in construction. Picture is coming up. You'll be able to take a look at it. This is a bevel rubbing tool. I put that bevel against the wood and cut on the pull, not push, and this is not a scraper. If I turned it like this, it would scrape and it would remove some wood. But what I want to do is to use this as a bevel rubbing. Find where the bevel is, there it is. Now it does have a tendency to load a little bit. And there are multiple sizes of tips that are interchangeable here. If I turn it over like this, it'll scrape. But I want to start here and roll it into the bevel until I find that support. Cuts from the center out. And gives a tremendously clean surface. That's a very nice finished surface, called the termite. To sharpen these, you can grind this, not grind, you can use your card, shulk it around the bevel. There is also a stone that they send with the tools that fits down in here. It allows you to sharpen the inside of the edge with exactly the same angle. Do not try to sharpen inside here if you're not using that specific stone. It's designed to fit there perfectly. The termite tool, One-Way makes this, Carbide makes one very similar to this. Not quite as substantial or not quite as stiff. The last one I want to show you is only available from a couple sources in the North America. Saskatchewan, I can buy this hook tool from Michael Hoselak. Also, Alan Lacer in the United States occasionally does a class on how to make a hook tool. Well known in Europe, especially Robin Horn, who is a pole lathe turner in England, uses almost only hook tools. Now, a bevel rubbing tool again, unlike the termite, it's open, so it does not load with chips near as badly. But again, I'm going to find that bevel, there's that bevel, and I'm going to be able to pull that tool from the bottom towards the top. A hook tool, a really nice one to use. Now I got to get back here so it's supported in the right part of the shaft. Look at that nice cut. And on the same wood, it didn't load up with chips like the One-Way did. So, roll until you find the bevel. You make the lightest cuts. This is a bowl gouge cut for the inside, and it's a tool that I would suggest you look into buying, acquiring, using it for your end grain hollowing work, and get a couple of pieces of green wood and practice, because getting this in the right position requires knowing where that bevel is. There's the position right there. But if I'm not looking, I go too far this way or too far this way, this makes it into a scraper, and this turns it into a position where it just won't cut. So start with it wide open, roll it in until you get that bevel engaged, and then center outward. Yeah, I can't go any farther down here. There's no place to go. Well, I would drill a hole in there to create a place where I can work from the center outward. Downhill to the grain for hollow vessels is generally from the center outward. So a quick review of a few interesting different tools that you should investigate. Thanks for watching.